Hello everybody, and hello David over in Spain this month. And I'm here in the UK, and welcome to everybody, all the ALLi members and other listeners from all around the world, to our monthly Q&A session for indie authors. It's great to have had lots and lots of questions this month. We've grouped them all together to make the show hopefully be a little bit more logical. We've grouped them together in basically in the order in which an indie author works. So from writing through to production and distribution to marketing and promotion. By the way, this is technically our November podcast in this series. But we've swapped with the one that usually comes at the end of October, so don't panic if you think you've done a Rip Van Winkle and slept through Halloween. We're actually recording it in October still. So, kicking off with the very first question about writing, where it all starts. Really interesting question here from Elle. She says, I'm co-writing a book. I'm in the US while he's in Australia. Is, but he's in Australia, so different time zones, different countries. Even with the internet, that can still be challenging. But she's clearly comfortable about the writing of the book, but says, how do we handle royalties once self-published, for example, on Amazon? It's the first time publishing for both of them. Before answering that question, Dave, I think it's perhaps worth pointing out for anyone who's wondering why on earth anyone would try to co-write a book with somebody who's on the other side of the world, why someone would do that. Just to say, it's actually a growing trend. A lot of authors who are already established as author publishers of their own books and are doing well are finding that's a good way both to increase their productivity and to reach a wider audience, because the authors, both of the partners in the writing partnership, are then effectively sharing their readership, introducing new people to each other, and with the hope that if the other person's readers like the joint book, then they'll go on to explore that writer's other catalogue as well. So even though Elle says it's the first time publishing for both of them, it's actually, she's starting out with something that a lot of established authors are already doing and embracing. I don't know if you've ever thought of co-writing with anybody, Dave?
I'm too competitive to write everything else. I like the idea of plotting with other people.
Yes.
Storming a book with someone else. I find if you can do it in like a small group, and I always wanted to set up like a brainstorming group where you got together once a month and you brought along the plot for your next novel and everybody pitched in. I find just talking about it.
Yeah. And as you know, with my second novel, Trick or Murder, it was a casual conversation with you that sparked the main premise for that story. Just to
sometimes people are too close to it to see what's happening. You know, you're too close to your own work, aren't you?
Yeah. And I've had quite a few people who have also said, "Oh, you ought to write a book about this particular action that might trigger a murder story," which is good fun. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for collaboration in all sorts of ways. So on to Elle's question then. What would you?
Yeah. So the writing. Yeah, as you say, the writing is probably the easiest part of this, but also maybe the most interesting. But in terms of how do you handle the royalties, I think it's important that you need a contract between you, so that it's written down in detail who gets what. In particular, only one of you will be allowed to upload that to Amazon. You can have two authors on the page, on the sales page, when you define it, but you can only have one person who receives the income. So you would have to obviously record everything as it came in. So you would probably distribute your royalty statement on that particular book out to their author so that they could see exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, because I know that ALLi does have contracts, and order is in the process of a whole set of sample contracts for ALLi members. And I suspect that this is likely to be something that we already have in progress.
Yeah, yeah.
Available, but maybe quite shortly it will be.
Yes, and it's also worth mentioning perhaps that when you've got the book up there, even though only one of you can claim will have the royalties going to your dashboard, you can both and should both claim the book for your author central page. So for your author page, because you've contributed, if you just need to email through author central to say, I claim this as my book as well, and a book can belong in that way to lots of people. So for example, I've had short stories published in anthologies that have got as many as 50 people in, and we've all claimed it for our page, which is a great reason.
That whole free book you did.
Book for your page, yeah. So great, okay, then on to the next question about collaboration or sort of cross-fertilization of a different kind, and we're talking about production questions now. Maya asks the best way to produce artwork that for a print book that she wants to publish at the same time, both with CreateSpace and Ingram Spark. And Maya is very sensibly following ALLi's recommendation that you publish your print books through both, because that enables you to have your book on CreateSpace and going out through their distribution network at the same time as being made available to bricks and mortar stores and other retailers through Ingram Spark. And of course, we should also note that when you're doing that, use the same ISBN for both, otherwise you can get in a tangle. So what would she do? I want to make a paperback version, and I want to have my cover designer make one cover that will be good for a 6x9 book in both services. How can I get her to design one cover that will work for both services? Is that even possible? Good news, Maya.
Yes, I think it is. It is possible. I suspect that if we had somebody like Jessica Bell here, who is a cover designer, she would say it is feasible but not to be recommended. But I've looked it up. The primary difference between the two is that CreateSpace and Ingram Spark use slightly different paper stock. I may have this back to front, but I think the Ingram Spark book is very slightly thicker.
I think it is, yeah.
CreateSpace book, yeah. And what happens then is that the particular issue is with the bleed area all the way around the book, so that you must make it wide enough so that it will fit in possible size. And even more important is the spine width, because that is defined by the thickness of the book. So you have to make sure that if you are using down the side or an image or something else, that you leave enough space so that it has to fit into the narrowest possible, and that you don't have like a blue front cover and a red back cover, because then you will get bleed all the way down the spine on one or the other.
Yeah.
Yes, it is possible. A good cover designer should be able to do that for you. And what I would recommend that you do in both cases, though, is you can download a template from both CreateSpace and Ingram Spark, and you simply place your image over the top of that, and it will tell you whether it is going to work or not. So it has crop marks are everywhere.
Yes. And
it's got marks for the spine. And if you can place what you do is you place both images one over the other and make one semi-transparent. That's how I do it.
All right.
You can see all the markers on the page underneath. And then you can just ensure that it does fit into the space available.
Yeah. Now, that's really helpful advice, especially to people who are doing it themselves as well, who are using Canva or InDesign or whatever to make their own cover. But actually, Maya's saying that she is using a cover designer. So actually, for the cover designer, if they're a specialist book cover designer, which is what you should be using for a book because it's a very specialised job, the cover designer ought to know, and it will be very short. They'll make very short work of doing it for both. It's just a question of tweaking the size and changing the way it's the format. I can't remember which way around it's saved, but one prefers RGB format, the other CMYK, don't they, as well?
I think I use the same on both now. They will accept it.
Oh,
I think CYMK is fine for both of them, but I'm wrong in many situations.
Right, but if she's using a professional cover designer, a specialist book cover designer, and she puts the challenge to the book designer, and they don't understand the question or don't know the answer, that suggests to me that perhaps they're not a specialist book designer. Something that I am.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I know my designer. I use Rachel Lawston, and she just does it sort of standing on her head, and in a very short and efficient time space.
That's right. Yeah, I use Jessica Bell, and she's the same.
Yeah. We've got lots and lots. So we're not showing favouritism. We've got lots and lots of terrific book designers, specialised book designers details available in our services brochure, which you can download. You can view. If you're not a member of ALLi, you can view it on the allianceindependentauthors.org website. If you are a member of ALLi, you can actually download it as well. And all sorts of providers in there, service providers in there, who are all partner members, and so are providing tried and tested services. So a good thing to look at any time. We've got another question on production from Chris, who is asking about registering his books with the Nielsen database, it comes pretty much, well, often comes at the end of the production process. Some people who are more organised than me actually do that early on. But he says, I have my books with Ingram Spark. Do I have to also add these to the Nielsen database? As I'd rather Ingram distributed them to stores rather than doing it myself. And if so, do I have to add them? When I do, can I put Ingram Spark as a distributor? So what would you say?
It's difficult. Ingram Spark have changed fairly recently, and what they do now is they will distribute the data that you enter into their system out to Nielsen automatically, I believe. However, I would also recommend that you go to Nielsen and check that has been added correctly, because I have read some comments that their Nielsen database didn't match what they thought they'd put into Ingram Spark. I think that's a kind of in a beta version with Ingram.
Yeah. So there
will be some teething issues with it. The official record of your book will always reside with Nielsen. So I would say it would be wise to go and check that. Their website and their registration page is not the easiest thing in the world to use, but it is possible to do it. And as I find, it won't accept information there, and it says, please email it in. And every time you email it, they're really, really helpful.
Yeah,
and they do what you ask at once, you know. But the whole point about this is, if possible, make Ingram Spark your distributor of choice, because then if somebody, a library or a bookstore or something else looks, they will go to Nielsen to look up the book. They'll send a request for that book to the distributor. So don't do as I did initially and have yourself as a distributor, because then you will get the email or the letter saying, can you please send me these books?
Yes, yeah. And I mean, it's astonishing. Ingram Spark are very happy. They geared up to sending out single copies, printing off. There's a whole point of print on demand. I think their average print run at their Milton Keynes plant is 1.8 books. so most of them must be, they're sending out single orders like that all the time, which is amazing. They give an amazing service. One thing to bear in mind that a lot of people forget, because we're so used to instant changes on our own websites and that sort of thing, is that it sometimes takes a little while for information to filter through, in the same way that when you update a record for one of your books on CreateSpace or KDP, it takes a day or two for it all to filter around the world. The same happens with Ingram Spark database populating Nielsen. You know, it's not a live thing that's updating every minute of the day. So patience is certainly a virtue in this game, but it will get there. It will get there. And as you say, both Ingram Spark and Nielsen, they are so helpful. So if you've think you've been patient enough and your changes still haven't gone through, then do contact them, and you will find them amazingly helpful, because they have their best interests are for us to be happy, really, as well as the people that they're supplying to. So they're working with us, not against us, when things go wrong.
They are, yeah, they're very, very good indeed. I think they're great. Okay, we're going to move on now from book production to book distribution. And we have a question from Gary, who asks about e-distribution. He is looking to engage a service provider for distribution and marketing of my ebook, which he anticipates will have a mainly UK audience, as it is about my experience working in British third world development charities. Waterstones seems to be a key distributor for ebooks in the UK, but looking at the self-publication guidebook, it looks as if the only way of accessing the Waterstones distribution channel ebook partnerships as Smashwords doesn't cover Waterstones. Is this correct, please? So what's your take on that one, Debbie?
Well, it's an interesting question, and one that made me actually step back and think, now, hang on, Gary, do you really only want to distribute to UK readers? Even if you think it's going to be mainly a UK audience, you may be surprised, because actually experience working, it may be British charities that you're working with, helping developing countries, but there are lots and lots of other countries who have got charities helping developing countries elsewhere. And with those keywords that are referring to the area of work that you're in, you may find all sorts of people all over the world will want to read your book. It would certainly, I suggest that your experience would certainly be relevant to those other countries. Now, also, provided that you have rights to worldwide rights for the distribution of your book, and as you've written it, I'm assuming that you have, Gary, then why would you only limit it to, why would you want to limit it to the UK? Because ebook distribution is by definition done online, on the internet. It's all without boundaries, without frontiers. Countries are actually irrelevant in a way, although you get different royalties depending on which country you're distributing them to. You've got an amazing reach, including the countries that your book will be focusing on, the countries where you've been helping. So I would step right back and start again and think, actually, how do I distribute my ebook to the widest possible audience, which will also include Waterstones? As David suggested when he put the question, I don't think Waterstones is the major, well, I'm certain it's not a major distributor of ebooks. It was at one point a high-profile distributor of, was it Kobo?
Yeah, I think it was Kobo. I think they now sell Amazon Kindles, so they're probably geared up to provide. But once you've bought an e-reader, you would then buy your ebook from a bookseller like Amazon or Kobo, iBooks, etc. You wouldn't go to Waterstones to buy it, I don't think.
No. So what you should do is look at how you want to distribute your ebook. The sort of entry level is to distribute it via KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, so that you are putting your book within reach of anyone with a Kindle. There are two ebook formats. One is .mobi, which is the Kindle proprietary version, and then there's .epub, which will enable you to upload your book to any other platform that you like, that you fancy, which you can either do going direct to individual platforms such as Kobo and iBooks, but there are the easy way of doing it, and the downside is it gives you a little bit less control, is to use what they call an aggregator like Smashwords or Draft Digital, where you upload it once and then Smashwords or Draft Digital or whoever pings it out to all of these others. They're sort of a middleman, really. They ping it out to all of these other distributors, and they give you one royalty payment, one dashboard. I think I think it's little bits of royalty come in from everywhere, but it's all through one dashboard, which makes life very much easier for you. So ALLi's recommendation is, if you want to go wide, go direct to Kobo and iBooks if you can, because that gives you some advantages. But if not, pick one of our partner members like Draft Digital or Smashwords.
And go to Amazon directly, I think. So Amazon, iBooks, and Kobo.
Amazon directly,
and then,
KDP directly for Kindle, and an aggregator to everybody else. And then you will get to many, many more people than Waterstones buyers.
Who are print, aren't they, rather than ebook?
I mean, they were. Yes, they were testing the water and trying to get more into ebooks, and I think they've sort of pulled back a bit. I think that, to be honest, I think they're probably finding they make more money out of selling the fancy covers and things. But the e-readers, I know they've got lovely Kindle covers in there. So the next one, now we're talking about audiobook distribution. So from ebooks to audiobooks. Philippa says, I have a self-commissioned audiobook, which I suppose assume means that one that she's done herself, made herself, that has been, or perhaps she means she's organised the production herself, used voice artists perhaps. It's been checked for ACX compatibility, ACX being Amazon's audiobook service. I want to be able to offer review downloads for free. I'm trying to decide between Authors Republic and Findaway Voices, and have seen references to Scribble. My concern is more about as wide a distribution as possible, especially libraries. Any opinions or downsides would be most appreciated. So she's asking, her main question is about offering free downloads so that she can get some reviews up there. You've worked with audiobooks, Dave. What's your advice?
Yeah, I've done exactly the same thing. I've commissioned voice artists to produce 3 of my, and I've got a 4th one probably next month, I think. I can't remember. He said he's going to do it as soon as he's got free moments. Yeah, so the 4th one's going out.
Great.
And I did what you shouldn't do, and I've switched narrators partly through a series, but presumably Philippa does not wish to go through Audible, which is where the ACX compatibility comes in primarily, because she wants to go as wide as possible. There are a number of different players in the market. Authors Republic is established of these distributors around quite a long time. They also have, at the moment, the widest distribution channel. So if Philippa is concerned about getting into as many outlets as you possibly can, and particularly into libraries and other things, then Authors Republic is probably a good way to do it. It's also an advantage in that they are ALLi partner members, which helps. Findaway Voices may be, but I'm not quite sure because they're much more recent. And what is great with Authors Republic, but Findaway Voices probably does the same thing, is that they will pay any into your PayPal account. This might sound weird, but I wish that Amazon would do the same, because I actually lose part of my payments each month because I get charged foreign transactions.
Yes, yeah.
Because it comes from dollars into pounds, and pounds into dollars, and euros into pounds, and goodness knows what. And the bank they're sending the bank dollars, and then they're translating that into pounds, and they charge me something like £5 or £10 a month in transaction fees for. So PayPal would be a much better option all around. But never mind. So yeah, the Findaway Voices, as I said, is newer. They offer slightly less channels than Authors Republic does. However, they are connected to Draft Digital. So that might make life easier if you already use them for distribution of, say, the print book as well. So it should be easier. In both of the cases, I think you will earn about 60% of the sale price. One of the things that may be important to you, in both of these, you are able to set your own selling price. I go directly through Audible, and I have no control over what the sale price is. They set the sale price for me. And I've just done that because it was easier.
Yeah.
Because you can set your own sale prices. And recommend there is you don't be silly and set it at something like $30 or $50 or something, because nobody's ever going to buy it.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because you can set within certain constraints, certain broad constraints, you can set your ebook and print book prices wherever you like on Amazon. So that's interesting on the Audible side.
Yeah. What's fascinating with Audible is that my audiobooks get to my Amazon books. And if you download a print book, for instance, you can get the audiobook for something silly like $2.99. And you may or may not make a sale otherwise, but it's quite good, and I get a reasonable commission on that. I'm quite pleased with my monthly royalty payments from Audible, so I'm probably just going to stick with them for the moment because it's easier. And they do have huge marketing clout for distributing books.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's sort of fairly classic sort of evolution in an indie author as well, isn't it? Start off with, don't try and do too much all at once. Start off small and grow and do the more complex things. I mean, you've been doing this for years, so you're hardly a beginner. But when you want to get on and spend enough time writing, sometimes it makes sense to make the decision to have the simple life. I mean, I go direct to Amazon on my ebooks. I haven't done audio yet, but I'm still using draft to digital, and it's in my plan for next year to start going direct to Kobo and iBooks. And gradually you sort of grow your reach and your control. And it's best to try and do little by little, because otherwise you'd go mad. I think it can be too overwhelming for anyone to do it all at once.
I think you can also the distribution side of things if you're not careful. It's best to keep it, like you say, in the early days, keep it as simple as you possibly can, and basically go with what everybody else goes with, and don't worry too much about it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So we move on to promotion now.
Yes.
And we have a question from a very familiar name, who ought to know better than to have to ask, but it's from J.R. Talley, who is a well-known member of ALLi and helps run the Indie Author Fringes alongside me and Orna. But she said, have either of you InstaFreebie or BookFunnel giveaways with other authors?
It's a really good. It's a really good question, and I suspect Jay's planted it in there because she knows that lots of people will be wondering the same thing. InstaFreebie and BookFunnel, we've had quite a few blog posts on the ALLi blog, and just as a reminder, the blog can be accessed by anybody, members and non-members of ALLi. The address is www.selfpublishingadvice.org. We've got lots of advice and case studies of some of the early adopters of both InstaFreebie and BookFunnel, both of which services are relatively new but have evolving. BookFunnel, I think, was there before InstaFreebie was. What BookFunnel is, it's a platform to which it provides you a space, effectively, to which you can upload copies of your books, of your ebooks in, I think you have to do it in all the formats, Mobi and EPUB, and I think PDF is optional. You have an account, it's free initially, and then once you use it, if you've got, then you start charging. But for most indie authors, free will serve their purposes, at least initially. And so your files then reside on there. It's all completely safe and confidential, and you have a code that then you can give your BookFunnel code for a specific book to people of your choice, whether it's whether you want to give away copies for review purposes, to your street team for pre-publication reviews, or as competition prizes or whatever. So the code is kept secret. It's just you have the code, and your books on there. You can have other documents as well. Actually, I've used it for other documents too, and I use it for review copies, for sending people review copies. And in fact, we use it also at ALLi. We use it to distribute the free downloads that members of ALLi are entitled to as one of the 21 benefits of ALLi membership. You have access to free downloads of all of our growing library of guidebooks, series like this one, all like this. We've got various subjects there. And it's a really easy way, it doesn't actually take very long to set up, and it's a really easy way of distributing books for free. InstaFreebie, on the other hand, was started more as a wider promotional service, whereby they share the images of your book covers and a little bit of blurb about your book, and is a subscription service where readers sign up to get free books from InstaFreebie. So they sign up to get free downloads. So it's for the purpose of that is really, whereas BookFunnel is to distribute free copies of books to people that you know, InstaFreebie is to distribute free copies to people that you don't know, in the hope that if they like one of your books, then they will become regular readers. They'll go on and read the rest of your books. So there's different ways in which you can use InstaFreebie. You can use it to you can use it for free and just give away free books, or if you pay a certain amount, then you can demand that people give you their email address in return for their free book. So it's a great way to build your mailing list and get email addresses on your mailing list. Where it may fall down is that, as we all know, there are lots of people out there who will take anything for free and may not read your books. Then they're more likely to download books that aren't actually books that they will enjoy. So you might if they read them, if you get a horror reader downloading a romance and they hate it, then you're more likely to get a bad review. Also very likely that they won't read it at all. So you'll have this false sense of achievement of having distributed umpteen downloads and actually getting nothing to show for it. I know quite a few people who have sent out a lot of downloads, who've distributed a lot of downloads, but had no real reviews for them. But on the other hand, there are people who have had quite a few, or have had one wonderful review that has made them so happy that they felt it justified the whole process. Yeah. BookFunnel has recently expanded its service, so it's got something a little bit similar, but I think most people are still using it in those two very different ways. So BookFunnel to provide free copies to those you know, InstaFreebie to attract new readers to your mailing list. You don't have to give away a whole book on InstaFreebie in the same way that you can use any other document, distribute any other document on BookFunnel as well. For example, I trialed it with my email magnet for my website, which is a short story, which I turned into a Mobi, and I got some additions for that. People who have built their email list using InstaFreebie may find they get a higher unsubscribe rate than with the normal email list, and it is worth keeping it separate until from your other mailing lists, until you're sure that you might want to email them different things, for example, initially, that are geared up for the way that they came to you, rather than sending them the same thing that you'd send to your normal mailing list. So they're both worth investigating. More information on our blog. Just put in InstaFreebie or BookFunnel into the search box on selfpublishingadvice.org.
Yeah. Good. I think we may have almost run out of time, Debbie. We had a couple of questions hanging on, but rather, I think some of them will take a little while to answer. So the last two over on marketing to next month.
Yep.
Ask everybody to, if you have any questions at all, just put them into the in the self-publishing org page. Is it self-publishing or on the Alliance page, Debbie? I can't remember. I don't know. No, I don't. I must. All I see is the questions. So I don't know where to go in. I must go and look that up, and then come back this time next month, and we will tell you exactly where you can ask your question.
I think Jay puts the link on the end of each transcript as it goes up, because the transcript will go up for this post event for this podcast eventually, and then there'll be a link on there telling you how to do it, how to submit your questions next time. So we will be back at, as I said, this at the start, this was the November podcast, although it's only October, so we'll be back at the beginning of December. How many of us by then, how many of our viewers here will have completed NaNoWriMo by then, I wonder? How many will be NaNoWriMo winners? Are you going to do NaNoWriMo, Dave?
I've never done it. I'm not a joiner in that sense, so no. Every year it comes up and I think, oh, I should do that. But I've already written this year's book and I haven't got anything else to do it. And I've got a conference in 2 weeks in Zurich, so I don't have any time to do NaNoWriMo.
Just for anyone who doesn't know what NaNoWriMo is, if you haven't come across it before, it's short for National Novel Writing Month. The website is nanowrimo.org. It challenges you to write 50,000 words in a month, and it's a great way to get your productivity up and to really fire off a first draft of something. And I shall be doing it, so I shall confess in our next podcast.
I think it's a great idea, and I think for those people that do it, it will. So yeah, no, I'm not against the idea. I think it is fantastic.
So, right, so happy November, everybody, and we'll see you at the start of December, and keep those questions coming in.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Questions. Bye now.